Buonasera, bine ați venit la Goethe Institut pentru Rendezvous de astăzi despre un nou festival de film, Cinefemina. So we are very happy to present you today a new festival we initiated with the UNIC, the European cluster of National Institutes for Culture here in Bucharest, not only in Bucharest, but here we are about 15 or 16 members. That means we have a different cultural institute being member of UNIC and having co-organized this festival. I'm very happy that I can wish a warm welcome to Roxana Lăpădat, who is in charge of Creat, of a part of the theater of Creat, of Teatrali, and also you are in charge of the program of movies in the garden of your institution. We will talk about it in a little moment. And also I'm happy to wish a warm welcome to Irina Trocan, which teaches at the National University of Theatre and Cinema, and you're also author. You published some books. You are also coordinating an online film magazine which is called Acoperișul de Sticla, if I'm not wrong, the glass roof.
That's spot on, yeah.
Yeah, and you have many other activities, but we will come back to these questions in a minute. Just to explain you how an activity like this is functioning. Yeah, we have the opening of our festival tomorrow. Looking forward to it, and maybe Roxana, you could tell us a little bit what will happen tomorrow. How will be the first evening? Can people attend? Can they come still?
People cannot come still because the event tomorrow is sold out, and we are very happy. But we will also open, in partnership with UNIC, an exhibition in our small gallery. But I think it's very important because the exhibition brings portraits of the 8 and +1 directors, women director, who are present in the festival, with a short bio, but a very relevant bio, and the trailer of the festival. So for the one who didn't had the chance to get a ticket for tomorrow, they can still come and visit the exhibition. And it will open at 8:30. And at 9 o'clock, we will start the event in the garden with some speeches from you as president of UNIC, from the ambassador of Sweden, and Irina Trocan will be also the specialist in the garden, explaining a little more about women creator in film.
Yeah, thanks for the explanation. And the festival will take place during 2 weeks.
Exactly,
from
Tuesday until Friday, this week and next week.
And we will see films from different countries.
Yeah.
From unique countries, like Germany, Austria. What do we have still?
With Spain, Poland, Wallonie, Brussels, Romania, of course. Sweden. We will start with a Swedish film, A Serious Game. Greece. So it's really a lot of perspectives, a lot of topics. Even if they are women creators, the topics that are discussed in this film are really very, very different. And that is why we warmly invite the visitors to come and see all the films as possible.
And is this your first activity in the garden, or did you already start before?
We have started on Friday, this Friday, with a concert, followed by 2 of the main programs of the garden, the Romanian Film Nights, which are curated by Elena Bârsan, and we have started with one of the most well-known films of this year, Babardale cu Bucluc, which have received from Radu Jude, which have received the Golden Bear this year. And it was followed by a Q&A session with Elena Bârsan and with Radu Jude. And the other important point of our program is European Film Night. And that is why we have chosen another movie with which a lot of words are not around. So it will be the not the start, but almost the start of the program of the movie garden this year.
Okay, so we will talk a little bit later, certainly, still about other activities you are planning during the summer and the fall. But first of all, I have to stress the fact that to thank Juana Bizan, who was in charge, who was the initiator of this film festival. Juana is working for the Swedish embassy, and it's also basically one of the reasons we have tomorrow also the ambassador from Sweden being there and opening also the festival. The idea was to work with you, to work with a Romanian institution, a Romanian place, but to have a common European activity. And we thought at a film festival, because you are showing all this movie, we worked also with you last year already together. And then Juana came up with this idea to have a specialized film festival with female filmmakers, and we brought all these other countries in. And this maybe just to explain to you very briefly is the way we are functioning. This cluster of Unique, where we are different institutions, cultural institute like the German one, Goethe, but Austrian also, but also Cervantes and the Italian one, and so on and so on, and some embassies also having a very active cultural activities in Romania, and everybody brought this film. How, before I will ask some questions to Irina, but how was done the choice? Could you just tell us something? Did you say, Roxana, this yes, this no?
In this case, no. Mm-hmm. It was a choice of Unique, and as you have explained it, it was the idea that every country brings the perspective on this issue. Mm-hmm. And I think this is very important because we do not. You do not have one curator, but you have a multiple perspective on the issue. And I think it's very important, and we were very glad about the selection. And that's why I said it's such a different topic and such different personalities of creators that we join in this festival. And we were very happy when you came with a proposal, Juana and you, with the proposal of doing this in the Film Garden, because we started this European Film Nights last year in cooperation with the cultural institutes and embassies. And at that point, we have decided on common ground what film we will present, and we decided together. But because this year the European Parliament has declared it is a year of women in culture and art, I think it's so important to have a starting point, because we had some movies directed by women creators, women filmmakers last year, but it was not such. There were one of the movies that we presented, and I think it's very, very important to start somewhere and to make people conscious that there are so many film creators, female film creators, who are maybe not so well known, but very important for the cinematographic scene.
Thanks a lot, Roxana. Irina, I said you are teaching. Are you teaching more specially female movie theory, or is your teaching? How I could explain it? Yes, a little bit specialized in this, or it's just one of your topics?
No, not really. I mean, the university in Bucharest is usually structured along general courses. So I teach, film journalism or formal analysis. But, just personally, because female critics, although there are a lot more women going in, there are quite a few women who stick to writing, because criticism as well as filmmaking is such a, brutal domain in a way, in the sense that you freelance and you never quite, in a year or two, you never quite get professionally accomplished. So it takes maybe, a decade to keep doing what you're doing to build up confidence and so on. And a lot of women quit. So it somehow, there's this concept that I hold quite dear of the glass ceiling, that there's nobody telling you not to do something, but somehow with minor discouragements, it might be less likely, at least for, women in my generation and people I've met personally, to stick around and persevere in their careers in film industry at large and criticism. So, it's more of a personal curiosity. There are colleagues who do specialize in gender studies, and I think that their work is important. But, even across the board as a cinephile, I am quite enthusiastic to see what is happening this year and the former years. It really seems that in the past decade, there's not necessarily linear progress, but taking events one by one, there's definitely more attention paid to, acknowledging talent and the diversity of perspectives. And, just taking this year alone, there's Cinefemina that I totally welcome, and I'm really enthusiastic to see the films that I haven't seen already. And as Roxana said, the fact that they're from different countries, because being a filmmaker in Romania or France or Poland can mean totally different things. And then other events, the F-Side Cine Club has been really busy and really doing remarkable things. Also, One World Romania, that is a documentary film festival, and they focus mostly on this hybrid or, border towards essay film. They have an edition that is both officially and unofficially dedicated to female filmmaking. They just happened to program a lot of films made by women, and then they decided that it has to be acknowledged in their PR that, female filmmakers are doing amazing documentaries and hybrid cinema and so on. Other than that, my editorial activity somehow ends up being partly feminist, in the sense that a couple of years ago today, I and some colleagues just decided, let's anthologize essays on Romanian cinema. Let's find a way to see what overlooked topics we could write about, and what, folk wisdom has to be demolished. And it happened that out of the 15 essays, mostly proposed by my collaborators, so I wasn't, as a coordinator, I wasn't telling anyone what to do and what to write about, but it happens that 2 had some sort of a feminist angle. One was Alex Michoi's article on in Romanian Cinema Inside Out on female filmmakers of socialist Romania, basically pre-1989, a lot of whom are known, but only slightly. For instance, Elisabeta Bostan is doing children's cinema, I guess, broadly. And she has done well-known films, but people kind of acknowledge her as a mother or someone who, channels her maternal instincts creatively, which is, a way of looking down on her, basically. And the other essay is Julia Popovic's. Quite different. I mean, it doesn't focus on female filmmaking, but on representation of women in 1990s cinema. I basically helped translate it because the article already existed and I thought it deserved to be published in English. And what she was saying basically is that, in this male-dominated 1990s cinema, rape was a very common topic, in the sense that, metaphorically it played very well in the drama. And basically you have these films that depict women as abused, as raped, and it's not about their feelings or their character or so on, just a metaphor for, transition to a post-socialist Romania and so on. And I think it's kind of evidence A on why you need a diversity of perspectives to not develop cliches like that, where basically female characters and, arguably women in general become objectified or reduced to some rote symbolism. So yeah, it happens that, even if my main interest is new media art or essay cinema, somehow when I look at films one by one, or when I think of what's interesting to work in generally, it does happen that I think a feminist angle should be brought up, or at least part of the overall fabric.
Do I understand you right that things are improving a little bit now? Do you have this impression? Because you said it's a very male-dominated scene. It still stays this, and we have also had some scandals about sexuality, abuse, and things the last years in different countries. So, but still, do you have the impression that, and it's also through your activity, as you said, through criticism and things, that there is a higher awareness and there are more young women choosing this way to be journalists, to be filmmaker like this? Maybe yes, you're certainly right. It's difficult to objectivize this, but maybe your impression.
I think that it really matters that young women have support, and that it's not discouraged that someone in their 20s would set aside a few more years to try their luck and persevere, even with no amazing signs of progress from month to month. As an editor working for an online magazine, I've tried to give the floor to women to represent themselves, in the sense that we've had this editorial called the dossier, basically called Girls on Film. And aside from publishing essays on women, female-directed films, we've invited, in questionnaires and interviews and so on, we've invited filmmakers to speak for themselves. And depending on the edition, the questions varied a little bit. But for instance, the first year we had Girls on Film, the question was, do you think there's a female style in filmmaking? Like, is there something generic or common to all women making films? And depending on the person, the answer was a straightforward yes or a straightforward no, and everything in between, in the sense that I do understand that women don't want to be taken as a genre, because they're not, and everyone is making the films and the art that they think is worth making. But at the same time, having come across the same obstacles in society and seeing the same blind spots in male-dominated film industry that, again, varies from country to country, from decade to decade, and so on. But it might have some shortages, I guess. And sometimes, even if women working on different projects don't, set a common goal, like this year is about #MeToo, or this year is about female empowerment, at least, there's something psychoanalyzable in what keeps coming up in stories directed by women. To some extent. I mean, in other ways, they're broadly different. And this year, we've had an Instagram campaign in Acoperișul de Sticlă, where basically we invited women to from young filmmakers to already accomplished ones. So Raya, Suliman, Sarat Sorakidis, people who are still working in short films and have graduated maybe a decade ago from the university, to Mona Nicoara, who's already an accomplished documentary filmmaker, and to somebody who has a voice and whose opinion is known to matter. And the question was, do you think there are self-imposed limits that you as a filmmaker kind of bind yourself to? And again, it varies from person to person, but the answer is directly yes or subtly yes. Although some attribute this to gender. I mean, some female filmmakers say that, it's hard to not be respected, or it's hard to not get funded, or it's hard to, I don't know, one of the most amusing comebacks, and I think it's Mona Nicoara, is what about Matrix? Matrix would have been done if the Wachowski brothers would have already been the Wachowski sisters. Would anyone grant that kind of budget in confidence? And sometimes, filmmakers say that being a person or being a filmmaker means having self-imposed limits, and it's not necessarily about gender. And maybe it's not, but it could you could at least pose the question, I think.
There is a new book of Dominic Graaf about the very active and dynamic East European cinema scene, and I think for all we have also Romania. 3 times Romanian filmmakers have won the most prestigious prize in Germany at the Berlinale. So our impression is that Romania has a very special role in it. Would you say that this has also an effect on young women, on female filmmakers? I think at somebody we will also host in our festival, Alina Scherban, for instance. And it was very interesting because she has won also a prize, but a prize as actress. And so, and now she's making film. So do you see you could even quote names if you want. Yeah. So young Romanian filmmakers, female filmmakers, which seems very interesting for you.
I certainly think festival recognition matters for small cinemas such as Romania. Maybe almost a decade ago, Cristi Puiu went around trolling film students, saying that you think now it's easier because Marfa și Banii got recognition, and because the death of Mr. Lazarescu got recognition, you think it's easier for Romanian filmmakers to, get attention internationally. And it's actually harder because you can't do the same thing I did again. That's one way of looking at it, certainly a pessimistic one to young filmmakers especially. I do think that international recognition, probably starting from Cannes, then going to Berlin, maybe, occasionally Venice or Locarno. It matters for Romanian cinema broadly, and it might motivate, again, young people across the board, men, women, non-binary, etc. I'm not sure that it doesn't come with stereotyping to a certain extent, in the sense that at one point, not necessarily anymore, but it seems that, if you want to have a realistic description of Romania, you have to show corruption, spleen, I don't know, people who are not in touch with their feelings and so on. I think that cliche is starting to break, fortunately, because I, for one, was very tired of it. What's also interesting and mentioned maybe quite often is that Radu Jude, who's an acknowledged male filmmaker, has made a habit out of having female protagonists in his films. So also, yay to that. I think there are certainly young women who do get festival recognition. Ana Lungu was probably helped and pushed forward, by the way, in a female-centered sidebar in Rotterdam in the IFFR. Ivana Mladenovic also, keeps impressing people with her films, and quite justifiably. And I do think that even, having a sense of community, having the occasion to, at least before and after the pandemic, travel and meet other people and, I don't know, kind of share the same difficulties and opportunities with people from across Europe or across the world, it's definitely empowering. I do think that it's a door that opens and closes, so I'm kind of against this, linear and definite narrative of progress, because I think it could happen that there is maybe a handful of Romanian filmmakers that are constantly discussed as being female, which I think it is a little bit neurotic as well. And that door could close at any given day. So I think what is important about Cinefemina, to come back to the event, and again, One World, F Sites in a Club, and so on, is that we basically normalize that, okay, some women are filmmakers and some films are directed by women, and it's not, again, it's not necessarily a genre, it's not a type of cinema you go to when you're searching for something super particular, but that any kind of film, documentary, fiction, blockbuster, I don't know, Netflix series could be directed by women, and you just have confidence that it's well done and that somebody put in a lot of work and talent in making the best viewing experience for you. So yeah.
But this is also a matter of, I would say, inner struggles of a society, because if I remember well, and certainly you was also concerned, last year one tried to forbid partly gender studies in Romanian universities.
Yes.
And I was really shocked when I knew this, because I thought that Hungary and countries like this, fortunately, if I'm not wrong, this has been avoided, so to say. But it's also partly, and you're completely right, part of a society between tradition and modern tendencies on the one hand. And you're right, we have also, and this is maybe also one of our main roles as Foreign Cultural Institute, we have to try to, how to say, to push a little bit to normality this kind of discourses. So, and you underlined also One World Romania. There's also a fantastic film festival we are working with in different countries. And I have also to say that with the ICR, we have also a partnership with their European Film Festival. So there are many different activities going in the same direction. And I would like to ask Roxana, is this for you, because you're not only working with us in this festival now, is this also a permanent issue for you? Because you're partly from the municipality, so you're also part from a certain form from the town, but programming films, and maybe also for a larger public, but also thinking on emancipation and things like this. Is this something important for you?
It's a topic that it's important for us. And for example, I named two of the main programs, Romanian Film Nights and the European Film Nights. But we have started last year also Dance Film Night. And we try to bring to the public films presenting important choreographers. And last year we had a focus on Pina Bausch. Not only, but she was the main focus. And this year we try to bring 4 other women choreographers who are very important. Sasha Waltz is one of them. Then Noah Wertheim from Vertigo, from Israel. We have Marta Graham, who is one of the really starters of contemporary dance. And Anna Teresa de Kersmacher, Rosas. So there are really 4 very strong personalities, well known for the whole dance scene. And when we were talking and you mentioned Mona Nicoara, I came now, it's really a coincidence, but today and tomorrow we have the second premiere of one of our theater productions in Teatrelli. That's Amnesty, written and directed by Gabi Sandu, but it's about a female filmmaker doing a documentary and about what it happens behind the documentary when a story is told somehow from a subjective perspective, and how it can influence the people of the lives of the people in it. But it's really a coincidence.
Yeah.
So yes, it's not a main focus, but it's a focus for us.
And I wanted to stress also that One World Romania has a focus on Ulrike Oettinger, who is one of the most famous German female filmmakers. And we would love to have her here, but still at the end, I would say, of the pandemic, it isn't possible. Maybe, Irina, I ask to you still one question. Is there a female filmmaker from whom you think that she is completely underestimated in film histories? Are there persons, because often it's this way when we're talking about composers, when talking about this, we see also that our perspective on history of arts, of history of culture, is often also very male dominated, and maybe we have also not only concerning gender, but also concerning what we call the decolonization and things like this, but describing history, writing history, and you are a critic, is also having a certain perspective. Would you say there's 1 or 2 female filmmakers you would like to see her more known, more estimated?
It's really hard to choose 1 or 2, honestly. I would, go with the whole form, such as video essays or documentaries or maybe short films. I think that there are categories that are really quite creative, and they take as much talent and implication and so on as feature films, but because, you know, there's more money and more institutional support. And as you said, institutional support is something that could be given and then very swiftly taken away. It happens that, I don't know, someone from Greece, for instance, Jacqueline Lanțu, who is maybe 30 and doing quite varied films, short films that some resemble music videos, some resemble an art installation. And I think she's wonderfully creative. People who have seen her films usually acknowledge that, oh, this is interesting and different from the previous short. But because, you know, you have to be a short programmer or a former short programmer or someone who goes from festival to festival, because otherwise you just don't see short films as much. And I do think we have to be mindful of that if you look for underdiscovered or underfunded talent, you have to kind of give a chance to something that is normally very marginal in film culture. And maybe be mindful of that. And also what I think is interesting, because I was talking to Roxana before we went live about Alina Sherban. There's not, you know, just one type of voice or one category of women that needs to have encouragement, because Ulrike Oettinger, you know, even to someone who appreciates Ana Lungu's films or Ioana Oricaru's, could be very far out or, I don't know, maybe kitschy. And it takes a while to build tolerance towards something that is outside of your sphere, and understand another person's term. And yeah, I would encourage everyone to basically go and do that.
Thanks a lot. So you are all invited to our festival, which is starting tomorrow with the opening of our exhibition, a sold-out film, and we hope that all the other films will be sold out also. Every film is, I think, in original version of the country, of the language of the country, and with Romanian subtitles.
There are some also with English, only with English subtitles.
So have a look to the website of UNIC, of Creat, and you can discover the films, also the different countries presenting these films, and we have some special guests. And if I'm not wrong, Alina Sherban will be there on the last evening.
Yes, exactly.
So feel free, and we would love to see you. We are sitting here in our exhibition, our current exhibition, which is called Without Borders. And when I'm quoting this, I have to say we conceived this exhibition with Adrian Buga because in the beginning of the pandemic, we remarked that borders came back in a very strong way. You know, passing borders became something of very difficult. But if I say this, I mean also I'm talking about our common European work. We have borders. We are different countries, but the fact which is unifying us is that we want to express the cultural diversity. And the more there is, the better it is. And I think this is the most important feeling and also willing of our European partnership, not to say that one country has the best and then but everybody is there to present their own production and this cultural diversity. And this is the way we are working in this very participatory way. UNIC will also organize other events. We will have a fantastic jazz festival taking place in the Green Hours, in the Jazz Club Green Hours at the end of the month of June, with a similar principle, jazz bands coming from 7 or 8 different countries. We will have a literature festival during September, a European literature night, and also other festivals we are organizing. So looking forward to meet you. Come along tomorrow. Irina will certainly explain us other very interesting aspects. Roxana will be there to welcome everybody coming there. We are very glad for this cooperation. I still have to thank my colleague Thomas from the Austrian Forum, because the very beautiful trailer of this film festival was made by our Austrian films, and thanks to all the other countries participating in this project. Thanks, Irina. Thanks, Roxana. And
Thank you.
see you tomorrow and the next week at this beautiful festival. Thank you.
Thank you.